I'm Inwood Lane. I'm known as the Gig Geezer. I can help you maximize your gig hustle. I also need your help. Hey, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up. Spread my content with others. And I welcome your comments in the section below. And with that, let's get into this segment of the Gig Geezer. Hey, thanks for joining me again. I am in the midst of another first half hustle. Today is February 3rd. And one thing that I've been thinking about in these changing times of the gig economy is what I'm thinking about is the fact that we are working in gig economy. I've constantly pointed out that we are self-employed, we are our own business people, we are running our own business, and so you need to treat it as such. But I also see things in the news about how the gig companies are under political pressure, or at least facing a political opposition, and also, complaints and lawsuits or just actions against them, and that people that they should reclassify what we should be how we should be reclassified, perhaps as actual employees. We are not employees. That's the whole point of the gig economy. In a sense, the gig economy has exposed something about businesses, in that one of the ways that they squeeze out profits is that they don't have to pay salaries, they don't have to pay benefits, they don't have to deal with workers' compensation. There are taxes that they have to pay, but there are no payroll taxes that they have to pay for us, the people who delivers or items that people are requesting. Now, I talk with some experience and with some qualification, in that I have my own, as I have shared, I am a licensed insurance agent. I have my own agency. I have an actual brick and mortar office that I pay rent, and I have tried to bring on agents, but it's hard. It is, in the greater scheme of things, it is hard to bring on people when you tell them that it's commission only. Everyone is looking for a salary, maybe salary plus benefits. But I will tell you that when you do salary plus benefits or salary plus commission, your biggest expense is paying that person. Your second biggest expense is going to be whatever insurance that is required. In this state, in South Carolina, with workers' compensation, when you have 2 or more employees, you must pay worker compensation. There are other things that you have to file, like a UC-120, which is a quarterly wage tax report. And I'll get into that because there's something else I want to share about that, just from my personal experience being in insurance. There are responsibilities that you have when you run a business. Now, the reason why I've pretty much have survived as an insurance agent and having my own agency is because it's just me. Everything depends on me. I have tried to show people how you can make more money working 100% commission, but somehow they would rather enter into a salary plus commission structure or salary structure, or they get the big head and idea that, hey, I can do this myself. Well, I've seen a lot of people come and go in this business, a lot of people. I could think of one guy in particular. We both started out. We both got our license in 2001 at the same time, starting out as life insurance agents for a company in which we had a route, we had a book of business. There was a quasi salary structure. He lucked out and had a hot book of business and really did well, whereas I had to work at it. Then he went on to another insurance company, caught another hot book of business. and did well. Meanwhile, I was plodding along, struggling, going broke for the next 2+ years and all, before I caught on and what I mean by that is catching the right clients, in which I was actually making a respectable amount of money each month. Well, he then got the idea that he would start his own insurance agency with one of the major property and casualty companies, which ironically now is leaving the state of South Carolina because they've lost too much money. He lasted all of a year and a half, and in the process, he says, last time I spoke with him, he lost over $100,000, and then he gave up all his licenses, all his certificate. He just let all that go. Now that's a lot. That's a lot to say. And how does this pertain to gig economy? Well, number one, this is what I want to tell some of you people out there. Keep your W-2 mentality out of the 1099 game, out of the gig economy. Now, why am I saying that? You have people who feel that these companies should give you a minimum wage, a minimum salary, who should offer you paid leave and benefits. That does not exist on most jobs in which you're contracted. When you're a contracted worker for a job, let's say, and I know of someone who worked in a contracted situation. This individual got a salary, but this individual had to pay their own taxes. They actually had no access to benefits, but they actually made a little more money than everyone else because they are contracted. Because the employer was not obligated to pay benefits. Essentially, that individual was, I'm not going to say in business for herself because she was actually an employee of the company, but that's essentially what we are. We are not anyone's employee, okay? These contracts or these terms of agreements that we are nudged or forced really into agreeing with so that we can operate on these apps. In fact, if you notice recently, DoorDash, before we can swipe into our selected shifts, we had to hit agree in order to with the revised terms of agreement. That should not be the case, though. That's really forcing something on us, and maybe there is grounds for a lawsuit because it's really not, because I mean, what it's basically saying, if you want to do business with us, you've got to agree to this. That really shouldn't be the case, though. But I've yet to see any lawsuits that speak to that. Who else does that? Uber does the same thing. You cannot really go further into the app unless you agree. You hit agree. And I think all the other apps pretty much do the same thing. They force you into agreeing. If you want to do business with them, you've got to agree to these terms. All right, so you agree to these terms of agreement, but each of them clearly state that we are independent contractors. And as independent contractors, there are certain choices that we can make, and without any penalty. One of the choices is we can work whenever we want, when we want. We can accept orders that come our way if we want or not want. But then there are things that we may be held accountable to, like completion rates, cancellation rates, whether orders are received or not, obviously. And that's really another conversation. Okay. But actually, as an independent contractor, you do the same thing with other business models. I know as an insurance agent, whenever I have entered into a contract or I've been appointed to do business with an insurance company, there are things that we have to agree to and we sign, and that then effectuates my appointment with that carrier. I don't see anything wrong with that. But I'm going to say this now, and I'll probably be repeating myself. Now, now I am telling folk with these W-2 mentalities to keep it out of the gig economy, keep it out of the gig game and all. And there's a reason behind it. I'm going to go back to my insurance agent experience. Now, again, as a W-2, and if a company offers benefits and all, there are deductions depending on the company. There are companies that pay for some of the benefits, a portion of the benefits, or all of the benefits. The companies that pay for all of the benefits are really good companies. Those are typically your larger companies, really large companies. I'll give you an example. UPS, at least what I last recall, it may have changed though, but UPS, if you are on permanent with UPS pays for all of for the individual, for a single employee, they pay for all, it's 100%. Dental, vision, medical. And then the employee pays a certain portion of benefits for family members, like for employee child, employee family. Those are the good companies. And that's the way it used to be. But that's becoming increasingly less and less and less. When I was out there, when my primary focus was employee benefits, in which I was soliciting business for medical, dental, vision, supplemental, and all that good stuff, I would encounter a lot of employers who want to offer benefits, but they said they couldn't afford it. So that's where companies like Aflac came into place, where the employer didn't have to contribute anything. It was all out of the employee's pocket if they wanted it. So that's why they called it supplemental benefits. But the reason why employers would not, at least they would hedge on it a lot of times, and so a lot of the smaller companies would not offer benefits, is because the employer is required to pay a portion of the benefits. In South Carolina, an employer is required to pay a minimum of, at least on paper, and the key word is on paper, a minimum of 25% of the employee cost for insurance. He can get by not paying anything towards employee child or employee family. That went for dental. That went for vision. That went for all of the benefits offered. Now, when I would go out and talk to employees, you go out and talk to employees and see what they think. Well, the employees say, "Yeah, I want benefits, but I don't feel that I should pay for them." So it's always this round and round, loopy-loop, cat chasing his tail type scenario. But that's when you are an employee. Yes, then that's why if you want to be treated as an employee, companies like DoorDash and GrubHub and Uber and UberEats and Bite Squad and all those companies, that would really kind of debunk their business model all together, because then they'd have to pay a lot of people, benefits for a lot of people. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I just tell you now, that's not going to happen. Okay. Who knows how many people do are at least on the app now? Who knows how many people? I'm not even going to guess. But there's no way companies are going to do that. I just don't think so. Now, the other thing is, if you want to be treated like an employee, then you're subject to scrutiny like an employee. Now, when it comes to working in a W-2 environment, I'm going to give you a classic W-2 environment, at least one that I worked in about 10 years ago. In fact, I worked at this call center setting for the insurance company in South Carolina. That was from late 2010 to mid 2012. That specific job paid very low. There was a very high turnover rate. In fact, when we tried to get, there were twice they They implemented freezes in which we could not leave that department. We could not seek other jobs within the company because of the turnover rate. Not to mention, there was high scrutiny of our actions when we were on call or on the phones. If we were to pause more than 15 seconds for whatever reason, there could conceivably be a supervisor beeping in on us, asking, well, why aren't we on our calls? Concomitantly, that is your $20 word for today. Concomitantly, if we had to go to the bathroom at this particular job, while on the phones, if we spent more than 7 minutes on that bathroom break, we could be subject to discipline. Yes. Now, who would want to work in that type of an environment? Yes. Again, who would want to work in that type of environment for an extended period of time? There's no surprise as to why there was so much turnover in that particular department. Now, I don't have to deal with any of that working as an independent contractor in the gig economy. I don't have to deal with that being my own agency principal or own agency owner as an insurance agent. There's something about independence. There's something about the freedom that you have to do things as you want, how you want, when you want. So when you complain about benefits and time off, and because of how you're not being paid or how you're not able to make a living, in some respects, that's on you. Now, what are you looking for? Are you looking for someone to take care of you, or are you looking to take care of yourself? That's the main question when you're looking at the discussion of being a W-2 versus a 1099 person. Now, there was a time someone whose opinion like mine would be shared in like the Facebook driver groups. There were those who would deride me as somebody who is not being positive, being a jerk, a moron, and that maybe I should just get a job. But even then, I think that what is safe to say is that gig economy, number one, has become an ever increasing part of our everyday life. It is basically a fact of life. It is, for some of us, our primary means of income. 10 years ago, nobody talked of gig work. It was part-time work. It was full-time, part-time work. I'm of the generation. I'm on the latter end of the baby boomer generation. I was one of those who was, I guess you say, indoctrinated into, you go to school, you find yourself a job, and basically you kind of work your way up at that place, and then you retire. That's kind of the traditional mindset. And then within 2-3 years after I finished school or was in my chosen profession, I got laid off. And it took me almost a year to find work. And so all that traditional thinking about finding work and staying there for a while, that went out the window. And from that point onward, in terms of W-2 work, I was at one location for 7 years, and probably 6 years too long, if you ask me. But I have been primarily a 1099 far longer than I've ever been a W-2 at any given situation. I really believe the days of securing a job and being at one for where you can retire, that's a thing of the past. Now, what am I getting at? According to statistics, even before this pandemic, gig economy work was fast entering our lexicon. And you could say roughly about 2014, 2015, with the emergence of Uber and then Lyft. Okay, and then all these other apps kind of came into play, like GrubHub, UberEats, DoorDash, so on and so forth. According to one source that I've checked out, which is from Forbes magazine, and then according to a couple of other sources, anywhere between 34 and 38% of the workforce is comprised of gig economy work. That number is going to probably creep over 50% within the next 5 to 7 years. And there's a reason for that. From a business standpoint, it's a more cost-efficient way of running a business because of what I mentioned in the beginning. When you're W-2, you've got a couple of your biggest ticket items are payroll and benefits, which can include workers' compensation, medical, dental, vision, and so forth. And so that cuts into your the bottom line is that it cuts into your profit margin if you have one. And I have seen firsthand employers really sweat it trying to meet payroll, trying to meet their bills. In fact, it was an experience for about a year and a half with one of my group medical clients. I mean, it was an experience for about a year and a half in which they would struggle to meet that payment every month. They were late so many times that the company just said, "We're done with y'all. We can't deal with this anymore." Yeah. So I know what that's like. Now, because of it's probably because of good business sense and probably because of greed. Those of us who choose to be in the gig economy, you've got to learn how to make it work for you. And at the core of it is that you've got to have a businessman's mindset. You can't be thinking as a W-2, dollars per hour and all that stuff, and complaining about can't make a living and expect to thrive in it. You've got to find ways. I mean, that's the whole thing about being a self-employed person, an enterprising person, is that you find ways to make it work. And if you can't make it work, consult YouTube, consult my channel, because I believe I've posted content that can help you make money and thrive in the gig economy. If not me, check out other people's channels. I did that. And so, with that, this is another segment of the Gig Geezer. I'm Inwood Lane, and as always, may your hustle continue. Thank you for checking out this segment of the Gig Geezer. If you reach this point, it means that you've checked it out in its entirety, and it's very much appreciated, and it tells YouTube that you're very much engaged in my content. Hey, if you'd like to get in contact with me or pass on some other useful information, I can be reached at giggeezer3.5@gmail.com, or you can check me out on Twitter at giggeezer.